you've missed it, or somebody you talked to about it wanted to see it, it's right there for you. Like we said last week, one of the things we wanted to do tonight is to examine the City of Burton's mayors and city council elections. They're to be held on Tuesday, November 6th. That's about 2 weeks from today. Well, it is 2 weeks from today. Now, for those who haven't been watching our program for the last 8 years, a little history on what's been taking place in Burton politics might be helpful. You know, we began looking at the goings-on in Burton politics some years ago when we started hearing rumors of favoritism being given by the Smiley administration to his land developer friends and even traveling companions, really at the expense of the Burton citizens. When we start looking into the rumors, it became clear from the evidence that we accumulated after some time that the favors being provided by Smiley and his aides for his friends, the developer friends, is outright public corruption. Now, as a result of this wrongdoing, and we'll get in more specifics on this, and the help that Smiley was trying to give his land developer friends, they developed a haphazard and random housing and business development to the detriment of the city residents. Purposeless zoning and rezoning for his developer friends. You know, it was more often than not opposed by the neighbors and neighborhood residents. And this problem was popping up all over the city. There was no rhyme or reason for some of these zoning changes and things like that. As part and parcel of this Smiley sellout of the citizens of Burton by, as you'll see, bribes, was his willingness to lend hundreds of thousands of dollars of our tax dollars, even millions of dollars as it turns out, to developers to subsidize the cost of their infrastructure. And they were putting this infrastructure into their developments. That's the curbs and streets and the water and sewer connections. And normally, in almost every case, the land developer assumes that responsibility, and then when he sells the property, that is built into the price that he sells the home or the property for. But in this case, Smiley set it up, so he fronted for this whole thing. He didn't tie up their money, he tied up the taxpayers' money. Now, this was a hell of a deal for them. Some of these developers returned, the Smiley favor by contributing big dollars to his election campaign, and in some cases even paid bribes directly to Smiley, according to some of the statements we have and we'll be talking about tonight. And they were also paid to his friends, who Smiley had given big jobs to in the city. Now, we'll go back a little to give you a little bit more understanding of what's going on here. One of the first people we heard about that was receiving big dividends for his friendship with Smiley was a developer by the name of Blake Rizzo. Now, pursuant to our investigation, in conjunction with Channel 5's investigative reporter Jim Kirchner, who incidentally is now as an investigative reporter on Channel 4 in Detroit, we were able to document Rizzo's unholy relationship with Smiley at the expense of the Burton citizens. Now, here's a video clip that we put together that was broadcast on Channel 5 a few years back, and on this program. It clearly shows how long this Rizzo-Smiley conspiracy goes back. And you'll watch this, and I think you'll understand what I'm talking about their relationship. Can you play that video, please?
He owns more private property than any other person in Burton, and tonight Blake Rizzo is benefiting from a controversial zoning change which barely passed a city council vote. Hello everyone, I'm Katie O'Mara.
And I'm Keith Landry. A WNUM5 investigation finds Rizzo may be too close for comfort to those who voted for his multi-million-dollar project. We'll show you the facts and let you decide. Investigative reporter Jim Kirstner joins us live from Burton City Hall with the story. Jim, what are they saying this evening?
Keith, Burton Mayor Charles Smiley says he's done nothing wrong, but he may also have a conflict of interest investigating himself. He's among a group of politicians out here we found socializing with that businessman who they just handed what critics would call a sweetheart deal, a deal opposed by many of the residents these officials represent.
I want to speak my mind.
It was standing room only last month when dozens of residents spoke out against a condominium project proposed by Blake Rizzo. It would be located on the border of Burton and Grand Blanc Township. Residents were concerned that Rizzo would be able to develop not only condominiums, but lower-cost housing, apartments, or mobile homes. Monday night, the project came up again for final passage with a zoning change that would guarantee only condominiums would be built. Still, 3 council members were opposed.
I don't feel comfortable with it without talking to some of my constituents out there because there was a lot of opposition out there.
The final vote was 4-3 with Hammond, Zelenko, Santilli, and Bonner voting yes. The mayor does not vote. Developer Rizzo left the council meeting without responding to our questions. But a short time later, about a mile down the road, we found the mayor and 3 of the favorable council members here at the Puzzlers Bar. We first recorded them all together with our hidden camera. Then Councilmember Paula Zelenko, who's running in a contested race for State House, left with her husband. And here's where it gets even more interesting. We walked into the bar with our regular camera rolling.
How are you? Good. Can I talk to you for a minute?
He's got to go.
We do?
What is that? Are you the owner?
Yes, I am.
What's your name?
May I ask your name?
Yeah, my name's Matt Lemieux.
Okay.
This is Mayor Smiley.
I'm just here to find out why these guys voted for his project. Now they're here having beers.
And this is developer Blake Rizzo.
I paid for it. Okay.
We were escorted out and waited outside. The bar owner called Burton Police, who asked us to stay off the bar property and wait in the gas station next door.
If they come out, I'm going to approach them. I'm letting you know that. I mean, they're fair game. I agree with the elected officials. That's exactly right.
But those elected officials did not come out to talk with us. In fact, this is Burton Police Officer Victor Eli driving the mayor's car away. We don't know whether he was drinking, but Burton has a zero-tolerance policy for drinking and driving of city vehicles and a policy against personal use of city vehicles. We'll come back to those issues. We then saw City Councilman Ted Hammond come out to his car, and he ducked us.
Can I talk to you, Mr. Hammond?
Hammond is in a contested race for the Genesee County Commission. 3 people in 10 minutes drove his car to and from the bar. The first time, a local businessman. The second, Hammond himself. And the third time, the Burton City Administrator, Charles Abbey, who smiled as he drove by. The morning after, we did talk with Mayor Smiley, first about the zero-tolerance policy, and the off-duty police officer driving his car away.
Is that an ordinance? No. It's just a policy. Who enforces the policy? I enforce all policies. Okay. What if you have a conflict of interest? Good question. Good question.
The 3 council members who voted against the Rizzo project tell us they were not invited to the bar.
Everybody bought their own, period. Ask the waitress. You can try to make this look any way you want, Jim. Really, if you want my head on a platter, put it on a platter. That's fine. Don't hurt the city. If you want Ted Hammond's head on a platter, put it on a platter. That's fine. There was nothing done wrong, period.
You don't think it gives the appearance of being too close or a sweetheart deal?
No, I think you can give the appearance, Ab. Sure, perception is reality in my business.
Now, we also called the other council members who were at the bar last night. Ted Hammond says he declined an on-camera interview, but he probably made a bad decision to go to that bar last night. He did drive his personal car, and he says he's not ashamed of his vote for the Rizzo project. The other 2 council members, Zelenko and Santilli, say they did nothing wrong. Now, the next Burton City Council meeting is scheduled here at Burton City Hall for August the 7th, ironically the night before the primary election. And some of the council members tell us they will be asking questions about the mayor's car and the city policy. Live in Burton, Jim Kirstner.
Well, as you can see from this video, Smiley demonstrated that the ripoff of the public deserves a victory party if his land developer friend gained the advantage, and that's what's happened here. Now, why would they be doing that? Here we have the public outraged about what's going on here and does not want this zoning change. But, you know, as a politician, you think you'd be listening to the people. But he wanted it for his friend, Blake Rizzo. Now, you know, let's update Smiley and his administration's continued screwing of the public and the lining of their pockets. You know, here's some other wrongdoings that this program exposed. One of the most recent ones was a ripoff of the public by the Rizzo-Smiley axis is Rizzo's 2003 Pebble Creek development. You've probably heard that name before because it involves a major federal FBI investigation into the city of Burton on this deal, and it's still being investigated. That case has not been closed down no matter what Smiley tries to say. It has not been concluded. It's still going on. Now, in this case, the Smiley administration floated a full faith and credit city bond issue so Smiley could help his friend, Blake Rizzo, pay off $1 million debt to a contractor that was a friend of Smiley and that Smiley had vouched for, or had vouched with, for Rizzo. Rizzo was short on money on a previous development, and Rizzo asked Smiley for help. Smiley went to the other developer, and said, hey, you know, can you front him until he gets his money going here again, until he gets some of the money in that's coming into him on other land developments. So the guy said, okay. So he fronted him for $1 million. It cost $1 million of the contractor's money to do this. Now, when the time was up, the contractor said, hey, where's my $1 million? And he went to Smiley and said, hey, you vouch for this guy. I want the $1 million or I'm going to blow the lid off this thing. Well, the next thing we know is that Smiley and his friends came together and came up with a $3 million bond sale that was oversold by about $1 million. This was to fabricate the construction costs until the contractor got his $1 million back that he said Rizzo owed him. Well, anyway, when they started this Pebble Creek project, that $3 million was for infrastructure for Pebble Creek project. They hired the same contractor. Now, what he did, it seems to me, is he inflated his prices that he was charging for the infrastructure equal ultimately to the $1 million he had lost. The point is, you didn't need $3 million for this project. Most likely about $2 million would have covered it. But this is a bond issue. Keep in mind, this money hasn't been paid back yet. You, the taxpayers in Burton, are paying this bond off for the money that Smiley and his people put up for this guy at your expense. Even though we know that the procedure is for the developer to put the money up. But he didn't want to tie his money up, or he didn't have it at the time. Anybody wanted to go ahead with the project, and so Smiley put the money up. At this time, Smiley hasn't even tried to get this money back from Rizzo. And Rizzo has money. He's done nothing about this. Pebble Creek lays out there, overgrown, nothing's happening on that property. Now they have infrastructure in there, but the property isn't selling because it's too expensive, because the infrastructure costs were so high and they projected through to the cost of the land and the buildings they put on there, the houses, and it's too expensive. So now we have all this money that the taxpayers are paying for out in Burton, and they're not getting paid back. You're not getting paid back for a expense that is not your responsibility. Now, besides that, here we have this deal on this project, Pebble Creek, and this is what the FBI is looking at. It says, City Attorney Richard Hamilton vigorously defended his decision to approve, quote, overhead and profit payments for a city loan to developer Blake Rizzo. Hamilton, speaking at the City Council meeting on Monday, said he did nothing wrong, and the $324,000 released to Rizzo was done correctly and legally. This was in 2005. The money was paid to Rizzo in late 2003 and early 2004. This story was written in 2005 is what I mean. As part of a $3 million loan the city took out to install roads and utilities in the Pebble Creek subdivision off East Maple Road. Some city council members peppered Hamilton with tough questions about the deal, including, and this is interesting, whether it was a conflict of interest for the attorney. Hamilton is also Rizzo's personal attorney. Now he's representing both sides. He says, you're blaming me for things I have nothing to do with, Hamilton said. He's the one that gave him the check for $324,000. He authorized it. And he did nothing. Councilman Jamie Curtis wondered who was responsible for making the decision about the loan. A number of city officials said they had nothing to do with the way the city structured the loan. Was it a ghost? Curtis asked after the meeting. FBI agents seized Pebble Creek records from the city this summer as part of a public corruption probe. Rizzo, who pleaded guilty to bribery and insurance fraud-related charges earlier this year, has accused Mayor Charles Smiley, City Administrator Charles Abbey, Councilman Bob Santilli of accepting his bribes in exchange for favorable treatment on his residential projects. Now, along with that, we have this editorial by the Flint Journal concerning this. It says, developers deal, Burton's enrichment of Rizzo needs full explanation. And then it goes on, among other things, saying the FBI is investigating. So leave it to the FBI to ferret out why Burton would take out a $3 million loan for placing roads, water, and sewers in Pebble Creek subdivision off Maple Avenue, while Rizzo owned it. The point is, why are the taxpayers paying for this thing? And they've never got the money back yet. After garnering $324,000 overhead and profit fee for the infrastructure installation, Rizzo sold the subdivision to another company without ever building in it or selling lots or houses on it, including the fee. With other income on the deal, Rizzo made $1,370,000. Meanwhile, former Burton Department of Public Works Director Ralph LaDuke says the city inspectors, not Rizzo, actually managed most of the infrastructure work. So this was just a gift from his attorney, who was representing the city and him. What do you think? Maybe the attorney got something out of this as his attorney fee? Maybe that's why he gave him so much. Now, the official line coming from Burton is that the city attorney, Richard Hamilton, authorized the payment to Rizzo without anyone's approval. Not even a nod from Mayor Charles Smiley. Do you really believe that? Who says he had nothing whatsoever to do with Pebble Creek. So much for the Burton strong mayor system, which makes Smiley comparable to a CEO in a private sector. He's saying he didn't know anything about it. This is the largest project in Burton history. Largest project And he says, I don't know anything about it. I haven't heard a thing about it. Notwithstanding that he sat in city council meetings where this was discussed. Now he says he knows nothing about it. You know why? The FBI is investigating. He don't want any part of it. He can't explain what he's done in this thing. And as a result, nothing happens. He doesn't do anything about it. So anyway, down the road, Rizzo is called in to testify before the prosecuting attorney in Genesee County. And on this occasion, there was 2 detectives and 3 attorneys present when this was going on. The questions were, and Mr. Rizzo's attorney, Mike Manley, was also there. Very competent guy. And Arthur Bush was asking the questions. He says this, we've taken a recess. Bush is saying this in his question. Mr. Rizzo has had a chance to talk to his lawyer again. You indicated to me before we broke that you had given cash to Mayor Smiley on a number of occasions, and the last being about a couple of weeks ago, correct? Answer, yes. Question, how much did you give him? Answer, 2 weeks ago. Question, yes. Answer, $5,000. Question, on the other occasions? Answer, a couple hundred here, there, every couple of months. Question, during this election cycle, or was this between the election cycles? And then it goes on to say, okay, the question, so how? When you the first time you gave Mr. Smiley money, cash, when was that? Answer, 10 years ago. And that goes on to say, how much have you given to him during that time? He said, well, it's hard for me to figure the exact amount. Question, would it be tens of thousands of dollars? Answer, yes. And it goes on here, and it says here, talking about other councilmen that he's given money to, and it says this, as part of the maintaining a political leadership that's friendly to you. He's talking to Rizzo about why he gave the money, and the answer is correct. And part of that is maintaining the political leadership that's friendly to you. Answer, yes. And friendly to you means that you would obtain favorable zoning, a consideration on infrastructure, bond issues, which fund these various improvements of public services. Answer, yes. And it goes on, and it says, let's talk about the members of the Burton City Council that you have provided gratuities or favors or direct cash in exchange for things of any other number of Burton City Council people. And his answer is Smiley, Santilli. I just donated some money to the Burton Democratic Club. He goes on to say, and then it goes over here, it says, with regard to the councilman, you've got Santilli, you mentioned him, and you were thinking about who else might have given you might have given money to. The answer, really, I gave a little bit of money to everybody there, except for Lori Tennant. And further on it says, well, tell us all of the council people you've given money to. And the answer was, my whole life. You want me to name every single person I gave money to in the city of Burton? And the question is, that's a public official in the city of Burton. Answer, is or was? Question, is or was, whatever. Answer, well, you could probably say everybody. And I guess I'll exclude Tenon. And that's about it. Again, he excludes Tenon because he couldn't bribe her, apparently. Well, as a result of this statement, Abby was charged with a crime for taking property from Rizzo, according to the jury's verdict of guilty, to help Rizzo handle his matters going through the city of Burton. And it says this. It says, eyes, at the trial, it says, eyes turned to mayor. Smiley restates his innocence in wake of Abbey conviction. And it says this. It says, he began his political career as a Burton councilman in 1987. And this is his quote from Smiley. I'm not even thinking about election, says Smiley, who rebuffed calls for his immediate resignation. I'm just here to move this city forward. Smiley's name came up often during the Abbey trial. Abbey was convicted of bribery and extortion for accepting the subdivision lot from a developer for free or at a greatly reduced price. Smiley also was accused of bribery during the testimony in a 2-week-long trial, but he has not been charged yet. Smiley said he's not worried about being indicted, despite the fact that developer Blake Rizzo, Abbey's accuser, told the jury that he also showered Smiley with thousands of dollars in bribes. And it went on to say, records produced at the trial showed Rizzo company credit card was used to pay for airline tickets for Smiley to Florida and Las Vegas, and for a ticket for Abbey to Florida. Amanda Spangler, Rizzo's former secretary, told the jury she met the mayor on a street corner with an envelope containing $300 in cash. She testified Rizzo told her the $300 was to help bail out of jail a relative of Smiley. They were standing on a street corner handing them money. Then it says, this was the trial itself. And then it goes on, and we have an editorial by the Journal, Corrupt Climate. Burton Mayor Smiley allowed atmosphere for wrongdoing. Even before, and this was the editorial in the Flint Journal, and it says, even before Burton Mayor, this was right after the conviction of Abbey, even before Burton Mayor Charles Smiley, friend and aide, was convicted last week of bribery and extortion, trial testimony and the mayor's own statement had shown this administration guilty of gross impropriety. Can there be any reasonable doubt that developer Blake Rizzo, who profited immensely from business dealing with the city, should not have bought plane tickets to Florida and Las Vegas for Smiley and Florida tickets for Public Works Director Charles Abbey? And then there is this bizarre scene described in federal court testimony of Smiley waiting on a street corner to accept an envelope of cash from Rizzo's secretary. Rizzo's secretary never should have been able to give such damning evidence, because the mayor should have had the ethics and good sense not to solicit a financial favor from someone so dependent on the city's goodwill. Well, we know all about that. While the aforementioned creates an undeniable aura of corruption at Burton City Hall, Abbey's conviction and possible prison sentence stems from another transgression: his acceptance of a subdivision lot from Rizzo for a fee or a greatly reduced, or for free or a greatly reduced price, allegedly for favorable city treatment. Whether or not Abbey's sentencing June 27th, and of course it was put off until September, ends this sordid saga, Smiley at the very least owes his constituents an apology for permitting a climate in which public roles and personal gain became intertwined. He can begin this contrition by ending his absurd claim that he's done nothing wrong. This is what has to do with this Pebble Creek subdivision that the feds are now investigating. But that's not the only thing. This isn't the only thing that's going on here. To point out what I'm saying about other subdivisions and other developers have benefited, and how it's outrageous how they've benefited, that has cost the taxpayers all kinds of money. Here's a deal where just a couple of weeks ago, Smiley had registered this deal that he had made with a fellow by the name of Al Kloss, a developer, and Mr. Rizzo. You know, we've all heard about this before, but here's what it is. This is the Pine Creek Estate Subdivision 2 for the reimbursement for infrastructure improvements installed by the city. See, there was no record of this that they had to pay it back. Well, what he did is he made him again. He took money from the sewer fund, your money that you pay sewer bills for, and a bond issue he issued to provide funds for Rizzo and Kloss to build infrastructure on their subdivision, and in this case, another case with Rizzo, of his industrial area, that he was building industrial business in this area, buildings and industries coming into the area. Anyway, they lent them about, I don't know, $1 million. Sewer fund came out of the bond issue, your money, you're still paying for it. So anyway, some might say, well, they may pay back. Let me just mention this to you. The one to Al Klaus was given to him in 1994. 94. That's 15 years ago. He still owes nearly $200,000 he hasn't paid yet. $200,000. Rizzo got his money in 1998, 10 years ago, and he still owes over about $100,000. Now, it seems to me that here's when this came up just recently in the paper, and they just filed these papers because they found out that some people were looking around on what this thing was all about and why this Kloss and Rizzo still owe this money and nothing's being done. Nobody's suing them. Nobody's asking for the money. What it's supposed to do is that the deal is that when they sell the property, they sell a parcel or a acre of the land in the industrial area, then they pay the cost of the infrastructure prorated to that particular piece of property. Well, it's been 15 years. In one case, 10 years in the other case. And that money was taken from the sewer fund and the bond issues that you're paying for. You subsidize Mr. Rizzo and Mr. Kloss. Now here's what Smiley says. It says, but Smiley said the program does not put city taxpayers' money at risk. He means that it will eventually be paid back. What is he talking about? Now this problem was corrected in 1998 by the insistence of Lloyd Tennant and some of those people who saw this happening. And he says, there's no tax money here. What is he talking about? The money coming to the sewer fund, 15 years we've been waiting on it. We've been making interest in there, paying interest, 5-6% interest. We've lost it all because these guys pay no interest. They just pay what the prorated cost of that infrastructure is on that piece of property from 1994 or 1998. And we're footing the bill for them. That's Smiley's friend, Rizzo, and Smiley's friend, Kloss. If you look at the campaign filings of Smiley, these guys and their wives and everybody else are major contributors to his campaign. Major contributors. That's the money they're showing. Now we know with Rizzo, he gave a lot more money. I don't know about Kloss, but Rizzo has admitted he gave him all kinds of money. So here's the favoritism. That's your money going out the door. And Smiley doesn't think anything's wrong with it. And we've been waiting 15 years to get it paid back. And this goes on constantly. We're just pointing out some of them now, but there's a whole mess of land developers that have received the same consideration that haven't paid the money back. We've got millions of dollars out there, millions, that are owed to the city, that there's no way to get the money back until they sell the property because Smiley made the deal. He gave the money away. And there's millions sitting out there that belongs to the taxpayers of the city of Burton, but they haven't gotten back. They were given the money because they were friends and contributors of Smiley in one way or the other. And he's never done anything about getting it back. He's never demanded that they give it back. It's your money sitting out there, millions. I'm sure you didn't know about that, but that's where it is. And he says, why? You know, they'll get their money back. The city taxpayers won't lose anything. They're losing all the interest on millions of dollars that he shouldn't have given out. He should have used the same procedure that land developers use all over. They pay for the infrastructure, and then they prorate it on the sale of the property. Why not here? Because these people are friends, contributors. They do everything, you know, for the benefit of Mr. Smiley and his friends. And people like his friend, like Rizzo, makes this unconscionable profit on a piece of property that he was the go-between. He sold the property, it was in somebody else's name, it came to Rizzo because it belonged to Rizzo. The other guy was just a front for him so that nobody would know that Rizzo had the property. He got the property after the bond issue was issued, so he didn't have to worry about not getting the bond issue. Didn't do anything, didn't develop anything. The infrastructure went in, and he got $325,000 to run it when he didn't even do it. He didn't even supervise it. It was supervised by the city. But his own personal attorney gave him the money. Now there's something wrong with that. The attorney's representing the city and the other side. Crazy. Your money. And that's Mr. Smiley's doing. He put that money out in that fashion to help his friends. And he helped them a lot. Rizzo, $1,325,000 in a pass-through of property. An attorney representing both sides giving a guy $324,000 on that project for work he never did. Smiley didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anything about the Pebble Creek situation. Didn't ever know anything about the money coming out of the sewer fund or the bond. Hey, that's not true. That can't be true. This guy has attended meetings where these things were discussed. Well, anyway, let's go on here to another friendly thing here. Here's the Burton 1 Toad Town. Exclusive tolling policy brings accusations of favoritism. When the city wants cars hauled away, it's almost always turns to Smitty's Towing. Not because it's the only towing business in town. There are at least 4 others in Burton. Not because it bid the business and won the contract. There was no bid taken. Smitty gets the call because Mayor Smiley, a friend of the company owner Rachel Smith, handpicked the Kleinpel Street wrecker business for referrals in 2000 memo to Burton department heads. Campaign records show that Smith has been a major contributor to Smiley's political campaign. Smith's son, Kevin, confirms his father is a friend of Smiley who has visited Las Vegas with the mayor. Over here it says, Smiley issued a memo to the city department heads. All towing, storage, and disposal service for the city of Burton will be done by Smitty Towing. I think it stinks Beazell said, apparently I don't contribute enough money to the mayor's kitty. And that's probably true. But anyway, here we have the picture that was in the Journal showing Smith and his wife and Charlie Smiley and his wife in Las Vegas having a good time. Here's what the Journal said about this. Buddy system, it said in an editorial. Burton towing policy, favoritism, not fairness. The image of the Old Boys Network is one government should want to avoid rather than flaunt such arrangements as is the way of Burton. Mayor Charles Smiley is unapologetic over his nearly exclusive referral of city towing business to his Las Vegas traveling buddy, Richard Smith Company, Smitty's Towing. If Smith feels strongly about concentrating business referrals to that extent, I should say if Smiley feels strongly about concentrating business referrals to that extent, he ought to at least call for a competitive bidding, whereas he has taken no proposals. Lacking a bid procedure, Burton should use a rotating list of local companies seeking the work rather than to cozy up to just one. Meanwhile, not only do Smiley and Smith travel together, but Smith, to no great surprise, is a significant contributor to Smiley's political campaigns. You know, Smiley can socialize with whom he wishes, but when it comes to doling out city business, he should feel obliged to use an even hand. Of all the good reasons to run a public office, the desire to cross-pollinate with one's buddies does not belong on the list. Another one. Here's Smiley's remark. Yeah, and keep in mind, the Smitty deal is not the exception to the rule, as we pointed out. It is the rule. I mean, here's all this towing, storage, and disposal services for the city goes to Smitty. You know, this is really called kind of monopoly. The concept of monopoly isn't even allowed in this country because there's no competitive bidding. And in this case, whatever he wants to charge, the sky's the limit. When towing, storage, and disposal charges are assessed to citizens whose cars or trucks are towed, stored, and even disposed of. If you can't you don't have the money and you're not wealthy enough to get the car out, you know, the towing bill keeps going up and eventually you can't get the car out. And then it's just used for parts. This is where they really make a lot of money. $100,000, $200,000 a year that Smitty's making, in my mind. You know, here's Smiley's thought. He says it's not taxpayers' money he's ripping off, as if it's not directly taxpayers' dollar being stolen directly. You know, it's a ripoff. Any way you look at it, the citizens' money indirectly is being misused. In either case, the payment is coming out of the residents' pockets. Whether it's the taxpayers paying for it or whether it's the towing bill that they're paying, probably much higher than it would be if it was competitive bidding. Now, here we talked a couple of weeks ago about the latest ripoff of Burton citizens by Smiley to help his friends and his campaign contributors. Just 2 weeks ago, when we and another of Smiley's good friend and campaign contributors got Burton Planning Commission to approve a rezoning request for Zitto Construction, a concrete crushing business, to expand its business over a heated opposition of the residents living in the area. We showed you the comments that these people made. Now, Smiley's campaign contribution finalists shows Mertz and Zitto as major contributors to his campaign for mayor. And all of these planning commission people who recommend this are all appointed by Smiley. You saw those stories in the paper about the zoning commission. See, what's interesting is the planning commission, which is different than the zoning commission, recommended against it. The planning commission is appointed by the city council. Even the director, the public works director, he opposed it. And it was still put in. And if you listen to this next tape that we want to show you, you'll hear one of Smiley's supporters on this thing saying that, hey, when he was challenged about why they didn't enforce the 2001 requirements on this company, that this company has never fulfilled, as they promised, why? He said, I tried to do it, but the higher-ups, Smiley and his people, told me not to do it because they're friends of his, they're contributors of his. Listen to this tape right now, this video.
Enforce this, I don't care how we do it, they won't do it. This administration does, we do enforcement, let's do that. So until we get good enforcement, I'm not going to lay the burden, more burden on, they can't do the burden we put on. We can change all we want, but they deserve it different than we do. So I'm saying I'm going to rely on my DPW recommendation. That's all I have. Mrs. Dunn?
Yeah, what I was going to say, Mr. President, thank you. If I'm understanding it correctly, this company actually should be shut down right now because we have not going to talk. You know, we are elected to protect the health, safety, and welfare, and I don't believe that I would have gone and purchased a home in that neighborhood the past year, and I don't believe that anybody that lives in this neighborhood could sell a home in that neighborhood because of what's going on. I'm not going to reward them. Yeah, I'm not business next to it. I'm going to keep our tax paying lower, and I think it's important so that we don't have to raise our taxes to have new tax rates. But we're not going to do it for safety with health and safety and welfare of the citizens in this community. That's just totally ridiculous. And they brought up really good points tonight. I mean, my husband has asthma. I wouldn't want to live in this area to do what's coming through the windows. I mean, that's a very big health risk to everybody that lives there. I think that these people should be told immediately that they're going to comply with the site plan that they have not complied with for 5-6 years. We can enforce that. We really can. And I think that's what needs to be done. And I'm not going to reward them for being non-compliant. They didn't want to do it the first time because they didn't believe that it was a good fit for that neighborhood the first time. And I'm certainly not going to reward them when our planning official has already recommended you not.
I have a problem, as Mr. Leduc does, with the lack of enforcement by the administration. It doesn't exist. We would be in this position today. Amber, no offense meant. It's management. It comes from the top. The top is not doing their job. And that is the problem. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm not picking on the mayor. I'm picking on the fact that the administration doesn't do their job. If he's guilty, so be it. If it's Craig, so be it. If it's Prosser, so be it. That hasn't been done. They will be. I know that business companies always take care of their businesses and do the conditions that are set by the planning commission and zoning board of appeals. It's our job to go out there and do that. And I don't know why it's not done. I tried contacting the public works director to enforce the conditions that were necessary to do under site plan review. It takes dedication to do that. I oppose some of these conditions that are now being met by the applicants. This conditional zoning application only improves the conditions out there. I concur with Mr. Leduc's comment. Denying it is not going to improve the situation out there because they can continue to exist. And if they are to be shut down, then they're going to comply with those conditions of the previous site plans. Only denial is not going to improve the situation out there. You're still going to have the pile of concrete, whatever height exists out there. It's going to reduce those piles. It's going to improve the site. I'm not going to change my position
how I'm going to vote on this. I voted in favor of the planning commission, or excuse me, the ZBA. I'm going to vote in favor of it again tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything else from council?
I just want to say, and I think it's really a shame because we work for the people here. These are the people that should mean something to us as elected officials. I'm really ashamed of all of that because even when you were when you were in the DPW job, you were there and you knew that non-compliant, something should have been done then. Just don't blame it all on the top administration. It's the DPW all the way down.
Mr. Chairman, I work for the administration to a fault. When I'm told to enforce things, I enforce it. I worked very hard to get a compliance between Mr. Zito and Neil Myers. We met many, many times to get that compliance. I can only go so far. I work for the mayor. I'll do what I can do. I think when I'm told that so far I can go with certain issues, you only go so far.
There you go. You see, he could only go so far. He wanted to do it, but the mayor and the people above him were telling him, don't do it. And it wasn't done. That was the project in 2001 for this concrete crushing company. They were supposed to do certain things to protect the public, and they didn't do it. So anyway, but let's go on here. Here's an interesting thing that I think indicates something about where this Smiley comes from. Here's a itemized contribution list for candidate Smiley that he filed, I think, just about a month ago. His biggest contributor is on here, Tom Gibran from Genesee Township. You may have heard of him before. His occupation is he's a developer. A developer. Now you remember Gibran. Gibran was the guy that was involved in the attempt to bribe Prosecutor Art Bush. And he came in and testified that he intended to bribe him, but he was ripped off by Donna Poplar, who said that she had an in with Bush, and if he would give her $100,000, he gave her $50,000, but she wanted $100,000, but he gave her $50,000 in cash to pay off Bush to stop an investigation he had going against Gibran, an investigation against sexual assault on young girls. Here's what, then he has the gall to sue the county to get his $50,000 back he gave to Poplar. And this is in federal court. And it's before Judge Victoria Roberts. Here's what she says. The bribe money. And this is a court opinion. The primary injury the plaintiff alleges was a loss of his $50,000 money that he voluntarily gave Poplar in his admitted efforts to bribe Bush. Plaintiff testified that he was initially happy to have participated in the illegal bribe. It was only after he realized Poplar had scammed him that he decided to expose the scheme. Had his bribe been a success, had Bush and Williams dropped the criminal charges into plaintiff's conduct, it is highly doubtful that the plaintiff would have complained. So in essence, the plaintiff is upset that he did not get the benefit of his bribery bargain. And then it goes on to say, not only the plaintiff cause an action against Bush and Williams, not only is the plaintiff's cause of action against Bush and Williamson viscerally offensive, it is factually and legally without support. His evidence that Bush and Williams participated in the extortion scheme is based on the statement of a convicted liar. Goes on to say, furthermore, in this testimony during Poplar trial, plaintiff seemed to have come to the conclusion that Poplar had misled him. He testified how convincing she was when he told her that Bush and Williams were involved, and how he later realized that he had been scammed by Poplar. Then it goes on to say, here's what the court concluded. There is no question that the plaintiff gave $50,000 to defendant Popper in an effort to bribe defendants Bush and Williams, that is, Prosecutor Williams, Bush and Assistant Prosecutor Williams, into dropping a criminal investigation into allegations the plaintiff had sexual relations with a minor under the age of 16. Interestingly, the married and now 74-year-old plaintiff Tom Gibran does not admit that he had sexual relations with the minor, but listen to this, but does claim that the minor assured him she was 16 at the time of any alleged contact with her. Come on, you gotta have it both ways. At the Poplar trial, plaintiff acknowledged that he had been his intention to bribe Bush. He knew that such bribery was illegal and wrong. So in essence, plaintiff is upset that he did not get the benefit of his bribery bargain. Not only is the plaintiff's cause of action against Bush and Williamson vociferously offensive, it is factually and legally without support. This evidence that Bush and Williamson participated in the extortion scheme is based on the statement of a convicted liar and conjecture. So that's pretty strong. But now here, this is the guy that now is contributing to his campaign. He's also a developer. He's had a lot of practice in bribing. And, if Rizzo is correct, and apparently the FBI believes him, says he is telling the truth, there's no talking or, joshing back and forth. They may go right to it. Who knows? But anyway, because of this, the Flint Journal, and I'm sorry I don't have time to read it, but I will next week. The Flint Journal has endorsed Lori Tennant, saying that the prosecutor, or that the mayor of Burton runs a corrupt campaign, and he runs a corrupt office. The question is, who do you want as your mayor? A person that's been designated as corrupt, or a person who they can't bribe, as Mr. Rizzo said? The only person he didn't bribe, Lori Tennant, is running for mayor against Smiley, who takes care of all his friends at the expense of you, the taxpayers. We'll see you next week.